How do we negotiate and enrich the relationship? The conversation is the relationship. And our most valuable currency is not money, is not charisma, is not self-sufficiency, is not even industry expertise, multiple degrees, IQ. 4 out of 5 executives who derail because they lack emotional intelligence. They lack the currency of emotional capital, which is something we're either gaining or losing one conversation at a time. Negotiation is a very important conversation in the relationship. How do I have that conversation and enhance the relationship? So I'm going to briefly share with you what the 7 principles of fierce conversations have to do with negotiations. Give you a tool, leave you with a tool that you can look at. This is all in your handouts, so this is something you can refer to later that will help you in any negotiation. And then we'll get the panel up here. The first principle of fierce conversations is master the courage to interrogate reality. That is a central function of any leader, but it's a central function of any high-functioning human being, because no plan survives its collision with reality. And reality has an irritating habit of shifting, seriously complicating our favorite fantasies about how things were going to go. Have you noticed that people change and forget to tell one another? Sometimes we forget to tell ourselves. So certainly if I'm preparing for a negotiation, I really need to learn as much as I can about the other party's reality. What is their reality? Reality is unforgivingly complex. There are multiple competing realities existing simultaneously at any given time on any topic under the sun. So here's my reality around this, whether it's a salary, whether it's a job move, whether it's getting a sexy assignment, whether it's taking on some additional responsibilities, whether it's flex time, whatever it is, whether it's what are we going to have for dinner. How am I going to interrogate the realities around this, the ones beside my own? So my mindset needs to really be, how can I learn everything that I can about the other person's story about this, their narrative concerning this topic? I need to really step out of this negotiator role and simply enter into a conversation where learning is going to be provoked for both of us or for all of us, depending on how many people are involved. The second principle of fierce conversations is come out from behind yourself into the conversation and make it real. And there is an appalling lack of real at very high places in organizations globally. Many people are deeply uncomfortable with real, and often will say, exactly how real did you have in mind? I think that if I were to express what I'm really thinking and feeling at this moment, that might not be a career-enhancing move on my part. George or Sarah said what she was thinking and was made available to industry. And yet I think it's the unreal conversation that ought to scare us to death, because the unreal conversations are very expensive for organizations and for individuals. And if you want to see somebody in real pain, you watch someone, whether it's a woman or a man, let's say a woman, you watch a woman who knows who she is and knows what she is capable of doing and defaults on it on a regular basis because she's not willing to come out from behind herself and say, here's where I see myself. And I'd like to navigate towards that for these reasons and in this way with your help. So the mindset is, rather than, again, just play the negotiator, I'm going to show up as myself with everything that I show up in all of my conversations. You see, negotiations is simply one in a long string of conversations. It's not this special conversation over here about which you're going to be successful if you don't have the relationship already going. Every time we walk in a door, show up in a room, we indicate who we are. We teach people who we are, what we're capable of, and how to treat us. And we get what we tolerate. We show people who we are every day. So who are you? Show up as yourself with your sense of humor, with a collegial attitude, congenial attitude, rather than I've got to fight for something Because if you walk in with that attitude, you'll trigger the person that you're with, and then you'll get triggered, and everything will go downhill in a heartbeat. In fact, William Stafford, who was many years ago the poet laureate, he wrote a poem called A Ritual to Read to Each Other. And it begins, if you don't know the kind of person I am, and if I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern others made will prevail in the world, and missing and following the wrong God home, we will miss our star. So how are you going to know who I am if I don't come out from behind myself and show up so that you can see me in all of our conversations, not just the negotiation? The third principle is be here prepared to be nowhere else. Be here in this conversation, this one, right here, this one. Not the one I just finished, not the one that's coming up, this one. While no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a career or a company or a relationship or a life, any single conversation can. And if you recognize that that may be true, how do I bring myself into a conversation and out of it? I remember just starting to work with a CEO just in the very beginning, and I just walked in and sat down, and he started talking, and I tried to interject myself into the conversation, and I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Finally waved my arms, got his attention, and I said, conversation, it comes from the Latin conversare. It means an exchange of ideas and sentiments. It means, it starts with the letter C-O-N. In Spanish, con means with. It involves being with someone, and I feel like we're not having a conversation, we're having a versation. And he said, my wife says that all the time, and he kept right on talking. And I tried to interject myself, and I'm fairly strong, and I'm pretty good at this, and I was just getting nowhere. And I finally got up and walked to the door of his office, and that got his attention. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. I said, you remind me of a man from my past who had a style of lovemaking that did not require my presence. He said, what? I said, never mind. You don't need me here. I'm just a spot on the wall to which you're directing all of these words. And I would really like for this to be a conversation, an exchange, like you talk and I talk and you talk and I talk. And we actually listen to one another versus some people who would define listening as waiting to talk. It's just like we really, really are listening to one another. I think this conversation is important to both of us, and I would really like to be involved in it rather than just passively. So in negotiations, I'm going to pitch my tent on listening. I'm really going to listen. I'm going to say my piece. And then I'm going to listen with every subatomic particle I've got to what is it that you're saying, and really inquire, really explore, really probe for deep understanding and pay fierce attention.